am moving away from my self-reliance into interdependence, but my business was not catching up to that. I hadn't caught up to that. I was still living in this self-reliant way in my business. And I think some of it has to do with the fact that it feels kind of weird to say I need people when it comes to my business, maybe because I have no control over it, because I think we all get a little bit programmed to think that social media isn't a relationship. Maybe there's some level for me of even just still believing that needing someone or something is super vulnerable because it sets me up. Like if I say I need you, then if you don't reciprocate, then I've just kind of put myself out there a little bit nakedly to say, I really need you. And then I'm disappointed that it doesn't happen. But when I really get honest with myself, I know that I'm already experiencing some of that disappointment. I'm already at some level, even without saying it to you, I'm feeling some of the disappointment and maybe even some shame. Hello, it's Deb. I realize I don't know how to start my podcasts. Like just saying hi seems okay, but maybe I need another better way to introduce myself. But I'm just happy to be back talking to you today. I want to talk to you about something that's been on my mind. I've been talking to my friends about it and thinking about it, and I wanted to just share it here with you. Now, what I want to say to you is that I have been a pretty self reliant person my whole life. I don't really remember a time when I didn't really just rely on myself and think, I don't really need anybody else. I'm just doing life and I just take care of things when they need to be done. And oftentimes I've heard myself say things like, if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. If you want it done well, you got to do it yourself. Or just that it's easier that way in many ways. It's not that I don't have a lot of friends. I'm married, I have kids, I certainly live with other people, but there's some way that I at least delude myself into thinking that I rely mostly on myself. Now, just to be clear, I have worked really hard on trying to heal this. I used to be the person who overdid. I did more than everybody else did. I took on more responsibility. I've often said I have an overdeveloped sense of responsibility. And in my marriage, I definitely felt for a long time there that there was an imbalance. I was doing way more, and my family, and specifically my husband, was doing way less, say, like around the house, carrying the emotional labor, remembering birthdays, remembering all the things, buying gifts, every single little thing that the kids needed to do. It's kind of an interesting thing, right? Because you look at that pattern and you think the other person is wrong, right? Like, oh, well, my husband should be doing more. But the honest truth, and I will talk more about this in another episode about this pattern of overdoing and underdoing. The truth was that I was overdoing, and then that set up the opposite in him, which was doing less. And my overdoing was really my own wounding. It was coming from the place of that. I didn't think I could rely on other people. I did feel a sense of wanting to have control over things, how things were done, when things were done. In addition, though, if I take it deeper, what I know is that the deepest wound here is really my fear of relying on somebody and the deep devastation that I experienced as a child when I realized that I couldn't really rely on other people, when I did need people to protect me and take care of me, and people didn't. And I was left alone to kind of fend for myself in many regards. And then, even as I got older, when I turned to people to see if they could support me, the message that I often got was that they couldn't. And what happened is I made up a story, which was that I didn't matter enough to make me a priority, to protect me, to keep me safe, that I wasn't important enough. And when I did need people, they let me down. They couldn't hold my pain. They couldn't help me through situations. They couldn't protect me. And I had countless examples of that from when I was very young, well, probably through my whole life, but definitely through high school, where I turned to the people who were supposed to be able to take care of me, and they didn't. So I just decided, and I remember making a decision that I will not need anybody else because why would I go to other people? Why would I vulnerably show up to other people to say, I need your help when all I was going to get was that they couldn't help me or wouldn't help me? And so this became a deeply imprinted wound and a deep groove of how I showed up in my life. Now, I tell you all of that because I want to share with you how this has affected me in my business. And I'm debating how I want to share it. But in a nutshell, I am realizing that sometimes I don't get the results that I want in my business. And let's just say specifically in my social media and my watch time and views, say on YouTube, not so much my relationships that I have with my clients or in my evolution group membership, because there it is a really reciprocal relationship. And I'm well aware of the actual relationship that gets cultivated in those containers. But when it comes to me in the world of social media, in the world of podcasting and YouTube, I find myself in some of my old patterns. Well, let me just rewind for a moment and tell you what I'm referring to. So, a lot of my friends who are in the space with me in the business world, we talk about how hard it is to balance putting ourselves out there and not getting the response we want, maybe not getting enough likes or views or view time or subscribers or whatever it is. And that balance of, on the one hand, saying, well, I don't do this for the results. I do this because I deeply desire to make an impact, to help, to be here, to serve. And also the true, which is sometimes it hurts and sometimes it's disappointing and sometimes we're let down by it. Sometimes we really wish that we could make a bigger impact or that we would get seen or known, that it's disappointing to not get the things that we are hoping we would get. Now, in the past, I would have never even admitted that. I will tell you, I would never even have told you this stuff because I wouldn't have even wanted you to know that I was anything but doing great. In the past, I would have projected the image that I'm perfectly happy with how things are going and I am doing great, and the image that I have it all together. Okay, no worries over here. Even if I'm disappointed, you wouldn't know that about me. I would be like, I'm doing great. I'm fine. Because I never wanted anyone to know that there was any vulnerability, any cracks in my armor. I'm just great. But the real whole truth is that the more that I put myself out there, the more that I find myself a little bit disappointed, the more that I feel let down. Now, on a spiritual level, if you were to go to ancient wisdom, an example would be the ancient text, the Bhagavad Gita, which I will put up on the screen because it's so hard to say and it's taken me a long time to be able to say it, but it is actually one of my absolute favorite texts to study. I love it. It aligns so beautifully with the whole soul way and the way that I live my life. It is amazing. And if you haven't read it, I definitely recommend it. Someday I hope to do a podcast series on the Bhagavad Gita. But in the Bhagavad Gita, one of the important messages is that you are in charge of your actions, but you are not in charge of the fruits of your actions. So, what that would mean in the context of what I'm talking about is that I can put myself out there. I can show up. I can have a blog. I can have a podcast. I can put myself on social media and I could do the very best. I can take best practices and do all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, I really don't have any control of whether people do listen or don't, whether they find it, whether the algorithm shows it to them or they don't. There's just none of that stuff is within my control. So, in many ways, you could just say, I keep doing what I'm doing. And hopefully someday my consistency and persistence and tenacity will pay off. So in conversations with my friends, we oftentimes will talk about this. We'll talk about a phrase that my friend Nicole and I have coined, which is marketing trauma. Maybe she coined it. I'm not really sure. I won't take credit for it. We talk about the concept of marketing trauma, where you keep putting yourself out there and you don't receive anything back. What we say is like you put yourself out there and then what you get is crickets, just so quiet. And what I realize is that I'm not really looking for people to like my posts or to say, watch my videos for self gratification. I'm not looking for a pat on the back or validation that I'm okay. I want to tell you, I have done so much inner work, so much inner child healing work that I really do feel pretty good about myself. I really do love myself. I do know what I'm bringing out into the world is very valuable. It's very useful. I know all of that. I really, really do believe it. I really think that I've nailed what it is that I'm actually missing. And I now can see that it's something that's related to my pattern and my wounding. So, what I see that I'm really longing for is a reciprocal relationship. And what's really hard for me is that because I have always been so self reliant, and because I kind of have this attitude that I don't expect other people to show up for me, I have built a business that is based on self reliance when actually I really do need you. I really do need clients. I need listeners. I need an audience. I need people who feel similar to me, that we're resonating with each other, that we're connecting. I need this to be relational because how else could I ever build something like this? But I haven't thought of it that way before. I think of it that way when it comes to my clients. I think of it that way in my community. But when it comes to things like this, where I put something out there and it feels like it almost goes into a void, and I don't really know who's ever going to see it or who's ever going to listen. I may never meet you. There's this way that I have kind of armored up around it and cut myself off from the relational aspect of podcasting, of putting things on YouTube or putting things out on social media. And this is what's really been interesting for me because what I noticed I was doing is that if I was posting something or putting something out there and I wasn't getting the feedback that I wanted, I tended toward either rationalizing it, like, well, the algorithm, or it's really hard to get seen out there, or you just have to be more persistent. And I would just kind of make myself feel better by just giving all the possible reasons why it's not working out, or people are busy, or people don't click like anymore. They read it, but they don't actually engage. And all these things that were in my head that were actually likely true, but there were still ways that I was armoring up and rationalizing why I wasn't getting a relationship, a connection that I was looking for. Now, let me give you a little more context on it. Because not only was I self reliant, but I also remember this time in particular when we had just moved to California. And for the first time in my life, I had to meet people, not in the context of working or some other structure. I had to just meet new people. And I was going to have to meet women. I had a history of a pretty difficult series of interactions with women over the years, including being bullied in 10th grade by a group of girls. So I was in this new territory of meeting new people. And the whole truth is that I'm not exactly a girl's girl. I had worked in corporate. A lot of my friends were in corporate. And the way we became friends was by us being so good at what we did and working together and ideas and all of this. And this was a new territory for me. And I inhabited a role It was my mask, my protection, which was to become the person who would plan things, schedule things, help people so that I would be indispensable. Maybe if I was indispensable, I wouldn't be invisible. I would kind of insert myself into things and be the person who would help and contribute. I would make sure I was adding enough value that you would want to keep me around. And I planned things because I didn't want to take the chance that you wouldn't include me. So I figured, well, if I plan it, of course I'm invited because I'm inviting myself. So I never wanted to take the risk in knowing, do people like me? Do people love me? Am I worth being around? I compensated for those deep, deep fears by being the person who was indispensable, the one that was adding enough value, the one that wasn't a burden. Now, what was happening in my business is a similar thing, which is I would give and give and give. I would post and share and help, but I never expected anything in return because I was like, I'm just the giver. If I give enough, if I help enough, then people will want to work with me. And to some degree, that's been true. But to some degree, not so much because this was a mask. I've been a little bit emotionally unavailable. I am putting myself out there in this way, really unbeknownst to me. I didn't even know that I was showing up with this pattern in such a way. And as you can see, as I'm saying this, like this is an example of that everything in life really is showing us something about us, our relationship with ourselves, our own barriers, our own ways that we hold ourselves back from having the lives that we want. Of course, if you ask me, I would be like, of course, I want a bazillion followers. Of course, I want everyone to listen to my videos and my podcasts. Of course, I want to be massively successful because then I would make a big impact and that would be great. And maybe there's some ego thing in there too. I guess I'd love to feel good about that my efforts are paying off or that people do like me. I'm not going to deny that there's no part of it, but let's just say I've done enough inner work to know where it's ego, where it's my humanity, where it's relational. So I realize that never in my life had I even considered how much I need you, how much I need people to be connecting, that I don't need the validation. I need the connection. That when I put myself out there, the painful piece is that I'm speaking and then I'm not getting anything back. And I think we are wired as humans, we're wired for connection, we're wired for that social engagement. And it's like if you were in a group of people and you say something and it just falls flat and nobody says anything in response to it, that it brings up this yucky feeling in you. I think I'll speak for me that when it happens to me, it brings up this yucky feeling in me. It makes me feel a little embarrassed and awkward, especially because if everybody else saw it, now the added level of shame is that people actually witnessed me being completely disregarded in what I said. And then I feel some shame for even caring so much because, like, what's the big deal? It was just they were distracted, whatever. And the same thing happens in social media. If I put something out there and then nobody comments, it doesn't become a conversation. It just becomes me speaking and then maybe some people listening, but they don't ever acknowledge that they heard me. They don't ever like the post or share the post. There's no engagement. Then it supports my story, which is I have to handle everything. I'll take care of everything. I'll do it all and I'll expect nothing in return. But that's not the story that I even live by anymore. I absolutely want reciprocal relationships. I want connection. I want closeness. I even want to honor and acknowledge how much we need each other. I am moving away from my self reliance into interdependence, but my business was not catching up to that. I hadn't caught up to that. I was still living in this self reliant way in my business. And I think some of it has to do with the fact that it feels kind of weird to say, I need people when it comes to my business, maybe because I have no control over it. Maybe because I think we all get a little bit programmed to think that social media isn't a relationship. Maybe there's some level for me of even just still believing that needing someone or something is super vulnerable because it sets me up. Like if I say I need you, then if you don't reciprocate, then I've just kind of put myself out there a little bit nakedly to say, I really need you. And then I'm disappointed that it doesn't happen. But when I really get honest with myself, I know that I'm already experiencing some of that disappointment. I'm already at some level, even without saying it to you, I'm feeling some of the disappointment and maybe even some shame. I think oftentimes we're afraid to maybe set a goal or put ourselves out there to say we're doing something. Like say you tell people you're going to run a marathon, but then you never do it. That maybe people are going to judge you, like look at her. She said she was going to do that, but she never did. And I'm starting to get over that and be okay with like, hey, listen, I'm just going to be honest and open. I'd really love the love. I'd love to share some love. I'm cool with that. I'm cool with being honest that um, I would love a relationship. I'd love whatever this thing is, the connection. And that I do really legit think I need it because it's unrealistic for me to think that I could ever have an actual podcast without finding people who share common interests with me, who are kind of excited about what I'm talking about, and that they want to engage with me and they want to be part of this. And not necessarily to even become a client, but because we share a vision of the world, our hearts, we're connecting. That's what I want. And I guess I'm just here saying, I don't know how I could have any type of business or podcast or anything without an audience, without all of you. This isn't just about me. I'm not just the teacher or the guru or somebody. I'm here saying, like, let's walk side by side home to ourselves. Let's be excited about things in life. Let's talk about things that excite us and interest us. And I want to know, what do you want to know? What do you want to talk about? What lands? What doesn't land? What rubs you the wrong way and what gets you a little bit excited? I know that my favorite friendships and relationships are those where we are in it together, where when I'm talking, they're excited about what I'm talking about, and I'm excited about what they're talking about, and we're kind of feeding off of each other. And that is the kind of relationship that I want. That is the kind of connection I'm looking for. In the past, I can remember when I first started doing work and I was on social media, I started building my business, I would only share quotes from other people. I would only share like Brene Brown quotes or Gabor Mate quotes or something. And it was always going to be quotes from someone else because then nobody could really judge me. I'm not really speaking, I'm just sharing what somebody else said that I resonated with. Slowly, I started to practice putting things out there that were my own ideas. And I would be so terrified of somebody saying something that I didn't know what to say back to them, either judging me, and then I would internally feel scared. I didn't sometimes know how to even communicate back to people. I sometimes even still feel that way, but I'm learning how to do that because it is harder when you're doing it through written communications and it's through the social media where it's a little soundbitey and all that stuff. But what I'm trying to say is that I think there has been a time in the past where I secretly wanted more connection, but was also equally afraid of that connection and what that was going to mean. Because, I was always a bit of a control freak, and being a control freak meant that a lot of times people didn't think they had a voice with me because I just made the decision. This is what we're doing. This is how we're doing it. Now, don't get me wrong. I was very much about everybody else. Like in my family, I was always like anticipating everybody else's needs and trying to do what was going to be best for everybody. But at some level, I was still the one controlling things. I was the one that was like pulling the strings of the family. And so a lot of times I didn't have to deal with a lot of pushback because like my husband was like, yeah, you want to do it that way? Okay, fine. He was pretty flexible with the way that we did things. When you're in a relationship and both people bring their own opinions, it starts to get messier. It's much messier, right? So if I come on here and I just start having a podcast telling you whatever I want to say, and I don't really ask you what you want and I don't really engage with you very much, well, then that's a little cleaner for me. It's a little easier because then it's like I get to be the boss of it. But that's not what I really want. I want to know what you want. I want to know what you want to talk about. I want to hear your questions. But then it does mean that I have to kind of figure out like how do I fit into your questions and how do we fit together? And that's messier. That's much more, I think, like a true intimacy because I'm seeing you and you're seeing me and we're trying to find our way together. And I think that for a long time, I really felt safer in the place of just doing what I want to do, just kind of having my own opinions, my own way of doing things. It's complicated here because I was one way or the other. I only knew how to be in a relationship where I either completely abandoned myself and I did what everybody else wanted to do, or I completely took control and I was the boss of everything. That's it. I didn't really know how to be in the middle. And I'm learning how to be in the middle in that messier place, the place where we're all honoring and holding each other's truth, so to speak, and trying to find our way together. That's kind of what I think the whole soul way really is about. It's about all of us bringing forth our truest, most authentic selves and then seeing kind of how we work together when we bring our authenticity. I think most of us have learned how to people please, or control or avoid conflict, kind of be a chameleon. And sometimes that's actually easier. Those coping mechanisms became really easy. And sometimes when we just do the quote right thing, we follow the rules and all of that, it can actually be cleaner and easier. When you're really following what you feel and you can no longer abandon yourself, that means that you have opinions and you have perspectives and you're trying to bring those up in the midst of someone else who doesn't share the same opinions and perspectives. And how do you navigate that and negotiate that together? So I know that I'm available for that. So if you're available for that and you want to be in the space with me and you want to bring forth some of your thoughts and your ideas and what's true for you, I want to hear it because I know I do need you. And that's probably one of the hardest things for me to admit in life is how much we need each other. I think about just being able to have a podcast and how many people I'm dependent on for all the engineers who created Zoom and the operations people who keep it up and running and the people who do the same thing at YouTube and Spotify and Apple and the the companies that bring wireless into our homes and all of the things that we need that we depend on other people. And if those people didn't do their jobs or if the company was gone, we wouldn't be able to do the things that we want to do. And it was easier for me to be living in a deluded world that I really am self-reliant when I really understand I'm not. I'm not. And so interdependence is probably a healthier way of being instead of fiercely independent or fiercely dependent. It's recognizing that we do work together and it's how to find that more symbiotic, balanced place where I get to be me and you get to be you, but we come together when it's appropriate and when needed, and we kind of move together. We sort of dance together. So for me, it's me kind of calling myself out. It's me realizing, oh my God, my business has been a reflection of my pattern. And while I have been able to interrupt that pattern in many, many places in my life, I have not interrupted this pattern in my own business. I didn't even know it was happening. I really didn't. As I was bantering back and forth with my friends about whether I should or shouldn't be attached to results, I was like, something else is going on in here. I want to share something else about the being attached to results. So, when I think about being attached to results, I think from a spiritual perspective, like maybe I shouldn't be. Maybe if I were to believe in transcending the human condition. But that's not what I believe in. I believe that we do need to achieve some level of mastery over our mind and become much more aware of ourselves. And I think bringing things to our conscious awareness is the key. But I don't subscribe to some idea that we are to transcend our human experience and become above it and become a person who isn't impacted by life. In fact, if I were to be completely impeccable with what I believe, it is, I believe that this work is really to remove all of the barriers that keep us from being touched by others and by life. For me personally, that is what I desire. Rumi says that our task is not to seek love, it is to remove all of the barriers to love. And I will apologize to Rumi if I got that wrong, but that's the gist. And what I want is for all of you and for me to remove all of the things that got layered upon us that became barriers to us being open, revealing our true, knowing our true selves and revealing our true selves, and being able to deeply meet and be touched by one another. That's what I long for. And so that means that I am not going to deny anymore that when I have a social media engagement with somebody or not because I put something out there and then they don't meet me, I'm not going to deny that that affects me because I think that is a human feeling that if you put yourself out there that at some level your humanity is hoping for other humans to connect with you. And that I don't think social media is any different than if you hold a door for somebody and they do or don't say thank you, or if you speak to someone and they do or don't acknowledge you. I think it's no different. I think it's the same thing. It's just on a different scale and it becomes something that we can rationalize that it's different. But I think that every time anyone posts anything on social media, I don't care how famous they are or how teeny tiny they are, or if it's your friend who's posting about their trip or their kids' sports thing. No matter what it is, it's a bid for connection. It's not just them saying, look at me. It's kind of saying, like, hey, I got something to say. And what they're hoping is other people are going to be like, ah, gotcha, how that landed, or it didn't land, or thank you, or I see you, I appreciate you in some way to receive back something in reciprocity. There's a reciprocal nature of relationships. And in social media, oftentimes it doesn't get met. So now that I'm being honest with myself and I'm not shaming myself for having feelings when I'm not getting the kind of response that I'm hoping for, then I can be honest to say, yeah, you know, I need people more than I thought I needed people. I like being in relationship with people. And I do like it when we're in relationship and in connection together. I do like when someone meets me where I am. I like the feeling that if I put something out there, someone receives it. And that not only they receive it, but they say, hey, I received it. A bid for connection that doesn't get met often does leave a little bit of a nervous system response in us, a little bit of a fear response, because we still are tribal. We still do have this deep need to feel connected. So I'm not going to shame myself for that, especially as I claim for this part of my life that I want to lean more into that interdependence. And I do want to create connection. And then I'm not looking to build a one sided relationship where I'm emotionally unavailable and I'm just kind of putting stuff out there with a wall up that you can't actually meet me with. Because I don't have it all figured out. I don't know what everybody wants to hear. I don't know all the answers. I'm trying to figure all this life stuff out too. I just happen to have a system that I use that I know has totally helped me and many women to find their way home to themselves. And we keep on walking the path. This is such a perfect example of you being able to see that everything is a mirror and a messenger, that everything that happens in my life, I know is there for me. It's a breadcrumb or a trailhead that's showing me home to more of my authentic and truest self. And it's the same for you. So I just happened to have become aware of it. And I said, how can I use what's happening in my business or what I'm not getting in my business to show me more about me? And so I did. That's why I realized how much my pattern is showing up and how much I don't want that pattern to show up anymore. So I'm calling myself out so that I can say to you, I'm not going to do this anymore because I made a promise to you in my trailer that I'm going to show up as authentically as I possibly can. And I know, I see it. I see my impulse to want to protect. I see the impulse for me to put on a mask and pretend everything's okay and just forge forward. But I don't want to do that anymore. Those aren't the kinds of relationships I'm looking for. Those aren't the types of dynamics that I'm looking for. I want to break this pattern and show up and let you see my whole true self, which is I'm not as happy with the results that I'm getting. And I do want people to engage more. I don't need you to quote, like my stuff. I don't need you to just like rate and review. Yeah, okay, I would love it. I'm all for you rating and reviewing because it is good for me and it's good for other people to be able to see what we're doing. It actually elevates the podcast. There's no question. But it's even more than that. I want engagement. I want to participate with you. One thing that just popped into my head, though, just because, again, it's important that I tell you the things that are showing up for me, is that I remembered that one of the reasons why I think I'm sometimes a little bit afraid of intimacy is because I'm afraid of engulfment. I'm afraid that if I open up to wanting a relationship with everyone in the world, then I am going to get engulfed. It's going to be too much for me. And deep down inside, it's that I'm not so sure I can trust that I can hold on to myself. Because I do have a history of being a people pleaser, I think there's a part of me that fears that, but what if everybody needs something from me and I can't do that for them? What if everybody wants a response and I don't have enough time to respond? And here's how I am going to handle that. This is my plan. My plan is to be aware of it. And if it happens, first of all, be with myself. Remind myself that I'm okay and I can hold on to myself and that I trust myself. And then I'm going to deal with it however I best can deal with it. Maybe it's that it's not as overwhelming as I thought once I reclaimed my access and connection to self. But then maybe it's that I have to hire somebody to help me to do something. I don't really know. We'll see. I will cross that bridge when I get to it. It's just a fear. It may never manifest. It might not. But let me tell you, there are plenty of other people who have been very successful and have a lot of comments that they have to navigate and they figure it out. Another thing I want to commit to, though, is I want to commit to receiving because needing and receiving are tightly linked. And I don't think I'm so great at receiving. I don't. I think oftentimes it's hard. I might deflect things or I just don't fully receive them and take them in and let them touch me. I think that's been part of being armored up is that things don't touch me all the time. I don't fully almost believe when someone is giving me something. I don't fully believe it. I don't fully receive it. I remember my husband used to say that he loved me, and I'd say, you only love me because you have to. I just couldn't take it in. Now I can take it in. And there have been times when I remember I would just deflect compliments, and now I can receive them. But I noticed something that happens to me sometimes in social media, which is when I believed that I wasn't supposed to want likes or comments or feedback, I would not fully receive them because I had this inner conflict of like, well, I'm not really supposed to want these, so I can't fully receive it. Or I would be disappointed because I would get 2 likes when I was hoping to get hundreds of likes. So I never fully even received those 2 likes. So one of my commitments I'm going to make is to really, truly receive every single bit of engagement and receive it as connection, receive it as reciprocity, take it in and fully allow it to touch my heart and to open my heart and to expand my heart and to give me that sense of feeling connected, connected to you, connected to myself, and connected to all that is. And so, my question for you is where in your life are you maybe not receiving? Maybe you're not receiving all the things that people are doing and giving to you. Perhaps you too have a hard time needing people or believing that you need people. believing that you can even rely on people. Maybe you've been disappointed so many times. And I understand that. I totally feel you. And I also know that at some point we have to realize so much of it is our past playing out in the present. And oftentimes we're strong enough to be with people who can't maybe be everything to us, but maybe we can be everything to ourselves. And then everyone else is icing on the cake and we start to be able to receive more. So I just wanted to say thank you. Thanks for being here with me. Thanks for showing up, pushing these edges. These are certainly my edges of discomfort around self-reliance and moving into interdependence and admitting to you that I know that I am positive and I'm clear now that I want to be open to receiving and to being in a reciprocal relationship. And I know it may seem silly to you that I didn't know that before, but that's what patterns do. Sometimes patterns keep us stuck in ways of thinking that once you see them, you can't unsee them. You see them in technicolor. And then you say, wow, okay, well, there's that. And that's where I am right now. And I'm there with you. And we're in this together. All right. Thanks, everyone.